I don't believe that they're the answer to our environmental issues, because they've been around and we see these things all the time. So I wanna reserve the right to be able to say, in case something like this happens, to remove some of the regulatory burdens and then put in a carbon tax, which would give people which would be able to allow people to address their output. It would give them, it would put it in their hands to be part of the solution.
Right.
And then they get to pay for what they put out, the pollutions that they put out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's more of like a free
it.
market approach to it, as opposed to the government just kind of doing things arbitrarily. So I wasn't going to, so I don't wanna say that that's the policy that I follow. I just wanna say that I am not going to tie my hands to say, or tie your hands to say I'm never going to do anything like that. I think it's a bad way of legislating to just put a resolution up there that somebody may or may not have to break, right?
Okay.
I don't want you to think that I'm in supportive of. It depends on what that's attached to.
What are you hearing around as you go around? Have you mentioned this to other constituents around your jurisdiction? I mean, are you getting support from people?
Well,
Pushback?
it's really interestingly enough that a lot of people know about people know about that, and I guess it was a bold statement to just kind of say, to vote no on that. I'm the only one in the delegation that voted no, just because I don't like to tie the hands of.
And I thank you.
On
I very much
something that
appreciate
wasn't
what you
even
did.
written, there's not even a law attached to it, so I just don't think that that's the way anybody should be legislating. It's a waste of time. It wasn't, it didn't mean anything.
Right.
So.
Such bills don't make a difference, do they?
Right, yeah, it's a waste of time.
Mhm.
So, anyway, on the federal deficit. First of all, I'm absolutely concerned about the federal deficit also. I do disagree, or maybe think about it in terms of the tax cut. I think that there are a lot of issues, first of all, that we needed to fix. And I think that we should have done the tax cut with some other overspending actually in some areas. I think that increasing the deficit because you've given more money to people to take care of their families, to grow the economy, there are two ways the deficit gets blown up. One, bringing that money to Washington and letting Washington spend all of that money, or the other way of giving it back to people and letting them put it back into the economy. I am not going to hold the taxpayers hostage by doing what we should have done, what Washington should be doing, and that is really addressing our spending problem, because we have a major spending problem in Washington. I am working to make sure that the cuts to the individual and families are permanent. That's one thing that is incredibly important. I don't want to increase spending in Washington. I don't.
What about
Which is
separating?
why I voted against the last omnibus that was out there. It added 1.3 trillion to the deficit, and that was, I wasn't going to be okay with that. But I do not regret, and I advocate for the fact that we see all of these people that are not just getting pay increases, but getting getting a higher wage in their jobs, and getting bonuses, and being able to preserve jobs here. That's incredibly important, because at the end of the day, we want people to be able to feed their families. I need to get, I will come back. I know you have another.
Just the idea of, you just said family, but I want you to differentiate between the different types of families that are there. There are people who make, 7 figures, and there are people who I consider more middle class who make, $120,000 and less. So I'm concerned about giving upper income, that 2% of that higher income family, those families, those large tax cuts over the middle class. I think the focus of the middle should be
if I
supporting the
would have
middle class.
structured it would have been a little bit more heavy towards which we did, by the way. We took everybody. There are people that are at a zero tax bracket. So I would have, if I were to have structured it, I would have structured it so that the majority of the savings or the increase in terms of funds would have come for those middle income families and lower income families, so that they can take care of their families. In terms of the federal corporate tax rate, we needed to cut that because we were not competitive on the global market. We needed to make sure that small businesses that were filing individually, that were paying 44% tax rate, were actually getting some relief because, I mean, those are the mom and pop shops that we want people to be able to thrive. So, but I wasn't going to, at the end of the day, I voted for it because I wasn't going to take the whole thing down, just so that we could, so there's gotta be some give and take, you know. I was willing to do quite a bit on immigration to get some sort of a, you know, a pathway or something. If there, I'm not going to let perfect be the enemy of a really good win, and so. Okay.
Congresswoman, thank you for having us here.
Thank you.
My name is Ashish and I'm a volunteer for Immigration Voice. So Immigration Voice represents high-skilled immigrants like scientists, researchers, doctors, engineers out here. And I've been here in US, I came here in 2005. My immigrant petition was approved in 2011. But because I'm born in India, I'm looking at a 70-year plus wait time for my green card. So this is about HR 392. That's already in.
What is it?
HR 392.
Okay.
So you are the original co-sponsors on this. This had passed the House in 2011 but got stuck in Senate.
Yeah.
So this is coming in now and it's a part of the DHS appropriations bill right now. So that's going to come up for the vote, and the main reason why I'm here is somebody today who's not even born in any other country could grow up, get educated, come to US, get a green card faster than I would. And it's only discriminated based on the country of birth. So only India and China are the ones who are getting affected by this. So I'd like to thank you so much for your support on this. I would like to ask you to ask leadership to keep the language of HR 392 in the DHS appropriations bill.
Okay.
So that way it gets caught up or brought up for a vote. And all it does is it does not increase any visa numbers. It does not change anything else. Everything else being the same, it removes the per country origin, like the limit on, if you are from India, you have this wait time that you cannot apply even though there are visa numbers that are unused.
Yeah.
So my ask for you is to talk to leadership about that.
Okay. Yeah. This is obviously, immigration is an issue that we've been working really hard on, and it's an issue that's important to me.
Yeah.
And I think that we did our country a disservice by not voting. Well, we got them to vote because we filed that discharge petition. I can tell you right now, we would not have had a vote, which is why I filed that discharge petition. And I can tell you that it was against Republican leadership because I wasn't getting a promise that we would get a vote. And on the very fundamental side of this, like I said, no matter where you are, you have a right to have bills debated on the floor so that you can know how your members of Congress are going to vote for them or vote against them. And if they're not giving us the ability to be able to debate these bills on the floor, then you are not getting your voice heard in the floor in Washington. So that's one of the reasons why we pushed, and we ended up getting a vote on 2 of the bills, even though we didn't get through the entire discharge petition through. As a matter of fact, we were short about 3 on that. It would have been nice if we had the other members of the Utah delegation sign on to it, then we would have gotten the discharge petition through. So, you know, I'm just letting you know that that's the reason why I signed it, because it was fundamentally, if we're not debating these bills on the floor, you're not getting your voice heard. And that's for everything, right? That is for some of the things that, you know, we've been talking about, so.
Okay, thank you so much. And
Okay.
HR 392, as you know, already has 327 co-sponsors.
Yeah.
So over 75% of the House is already co-sponsored
Yeah.
with it. And
Yeah.
Thank you.
Paul Warner.
Hi, Paul.
Hi. I'm gonna limit my discussion to one topic. I mean, you got hundreds of them you talked about,
Yeah.
but I guess I was concerned about the economy in Utah, the high taxes for supporting education. North Dakota got their land back. Now the people are not burdened with high taxes to support education. But Utah is, because they own 67% of the land in Utah. So we got the BLM, the Department of Interior, Forest Service. government's controlling all the land in, majority of the land in Utah. Is this a government's position to control land from the state? Where we could use the land for, the development of mineral resources, forest services, would go to the people, use of the land. Why the government's keeping all these lands basically in the western United States? They're controlling the majority of the land, 50% or so of the land in the states, which we could go to the Utah, support the Utah economy, and so the mineral rights and everything goes to the federal government. I mean, it's a big deal, a lot of money for the federal government to extract from all the states.
Yeah.
Where it
Alright.
could go to the states, the people itself.
Yeah.
And why is government controlling, keeping this land from the states and have all these other agencies set up that seem like originally Utah, they were promised to get the land back in 1894 when we became a state. Well, we'll give you the land back. 100 years later, they still control all this land. I don't know, this
I know,
seems to be a problem.
This is an issue that is, that is a very hot topic for a lot of people. There are a lot of people that feel very strongly one way or the other, in terms of, the federal lands and the 65% that is owned by federal government. So I wanna step back because I think that we've gotten into the point where we're talking about what to do, with these lands. And the bottom line, I think for me, is I think that we, our outdoor recreation, our people, all of Utahns should be the ones making decisions about what is happening on these lands. And the fact is, when the decision is being done, believe it or not, by one administration, you're gonna get somebody who can give it, and you're gonna get somebody who can take it away, and the problem is we have no say. And that has always been the biggest issue for me. So, I think that, one, when it comes to that, we need to find a way to make sure that we as Utahns are the ones, and the people that are here are the ones that actually have a say as to what happens here. The other thing also is that there are two things that, there are three actually bills that we've taken care of. For instance, I listened to what's happening on the ground. Juab County needed some federal lands to be able to fight fires, and wanted to be able to put equipment on land to fight fires, for a population of 1,000, but they're fighting fires on thousands of acres. So we were able to work with colleagues on both sides of the aisle so that we can actually give that land to Juab County so that they can fight fires on federal land, because guess who gets to those first? The local entities that are there. I know, I dealt with it in Saratoga Springs in the dump fire. We fought those fires for 3 days before anybody stepped in. No one even knew. And by the way, after that came all of the floods with that, and it was horrible to deal with. And Washington didn't help us with that. They didn't help us fix those homes that were not working. In terms of education, we've put a bill together that actually is able to give SITLA for disposable lands that they find disposable, that no one was doing anything with. It was sitting up there to be able to get those lands so that we can use them to fund education. So I'm trying to do my part in terms of giving Utah a little bit more flexibility so that we can fund education. So these are disposable lands. These are lands that SITLA has set out to dispose of, that nobody's doing anything on, that they're saying we're actually going to be donating this land so that Utah can actually get
They're so
those.
chopped up though, then you're gonna
Yeah.
consolidate them, they're crazy.
No, well, that's why we have to do it piece by
Right.
piece.
Right.
Mill Creek also, there was some federal land, there was some lands that, on the other, it's worked the other way too. So what I'm trying to give you is an example of how it worked the other way, how I'm listening to the groups that are on the ground and Utahns on what to do with those lands. So in Mill Creek, there was land that was owned by the Scouts that we needed to transfer over, so that people would have access to them. We transferred it over to the fire forestry groups, and now we have access to those lands. So that was actually a way that we transferred it back so that we could give people more access to those lands. So it works both ways. The only problem is that we have on these 65% is that it's not controlled. Everyone's angry because somebody else is in control. I think that that's the biggest thing. And I will